What happens when a royal guest forgets they're not at the palace anymore? In just 37 seconds, a simple question about family would trigger the most shocking meltdown ever witnessed on daytime television. Prince Harry's appearance on the Jennifer Hudson Show was supposed to be a friendly conversation, a chance to connect with everyday Americans. Instead, it became a masterclass in entitlement, disrespect, and a catastrophic fall from grace that would leave the entire studio in stunned silence. The cameras were rolling, the audience was settled, and Jennifer Hudson sat across from Prince Harry with her trademark warm smile. She had done hundreds of interviews, talked to everyone from Hollywood legends, to musicians, to everyday heroes. She knew how to make people comfortable, how to bring out their best stories. This was supposed to be easy. Jennifer leaned forward slightly, her voice friendly and inviting. So, Harry, I want to start by asking you something a lot of people are curious about. You've talked about family being so important to you. Can you tell us what family means to you now, especially with everything that's happened over the past few years? It was a softball question, the kind every celebrity gets asked, the kind designed to let them share something personal, something heartwarming. The audience waited, expecting to hear about his children, maybe a touching story about fatherhood. Harry's expression changed. His jaw tightened. He shifted in his seat, and when he spoke, his tone was clipped, almost defensive. Family means, Jennifer, that you stand by the people who matter, not the ones who smile for cameras and then stab you in the back the moment you leave the room. Jennifer's smile wavered just a fraction. She nodded slowly, trying to keep the energy positive. I understand that family relationships can be complicated. We all have moments where things get tough. But you've built a new life, a new family with your wife and children. That must bring you joy. Harry looked at her like she had just asked the most ridiculous question in the world. He let out a sharp breath through his nose. Joy? You think this is about joy? This is about survival, Jennifer. This is about protecting the people I love from a machine that chews people up and spits them out. But I wouldn't expect you to understand that. The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few people glanced at each other. Jennifer sat up straighter, her professionalism kicking in. She kept her voice calm, measured. Harry, I think a lot of people do understand struggle. Many people watching right now have faced their own challenges with family. They've had to make hard choices too. What would you say to them? Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was cold, dismissive. What would I say to them? I'd say their problems, and my problems are not the same, Jennifer. They don't have the weight of an entire institution trying to destroy them. They don't have millions of people judging their every move. Jennifer's expression hardened slightly. She was still professional, still composed, but her tone became firmer. Harry, with all due respect, many people face judgment every single day. Single mothers working 3 jobs, people facing discrimination, families struggling to keep food on the table. They might not have your platform, but their struggles are real too. Harry waved his hand dismissively, as if swatting away her words. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone wants to compare themselves to me. Everyone wants to act like they know what it's like, but they don't. They have no idea. Jennifer took a slow breath. She glanced briefly at her producers off camera, then back at Harry. I'm not comparing anyone to you, Harry. I'm simply saying that pain is pain. Struggle is struggle. And a lot of people out there are going through their own versions of hardship. Harry leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Right. And I'm sure their hardships include being photographed everywhere they go, having lies written about them daily, having their family turn on them for wanting a normal life. The tension in the studio was thick now. You could feel it in the air. Jennifer maintained her composure, but her eyes had changed. There was a strength there, a quiet power. Harry, I grew up in Chicago. I lost my mother, my brother, and my nephew to violence. I know what loss feels like. I know what it's like to have your world torn apart. And I can tell you that everyone in this audience, everyone watching at home, they all have their own stories of pain. That doesn't make your pain less real, but it also doesn't make theirs less valid. Harry's face flushed. He uncrossed his arms and pointed a finger at her. Don't you dare try to lecture me about loss. You have no idea what I've been through. No idea what it's like to lose a parent the way I did. Jennifer's voice remained steady, but there was steel in it now. You're right. I don't know what it's like to lose a parent the way you did. And you don't know what it's like to lose family the way I did. That's the point, Harry. We all carry different burdens. But when you come on a show like this and dismiss everyone else's pain, when you act like you're the only one who's ever suffered, that's not okay. Harry stood up abruptly. The sudden movement made several audience members gasp. He looked down at Jennifer, his face twisted with indignation. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I come here to share my truth, and instead I get attacked. I get told that my pain doesn't matter, because other people have problems too. Jennifer remained seated, looking up at him calmly. Harry, nobody attacked you. I asked you about family. You're the one who turned this into something else. Harry shook his head, pacing a few steps. No, this is typical. This is what happens every time I try to speak my truth. People twist it. They make me out to be the bad guy. Jennifer stood up now too, matching his energy, but keeping her cool. Harry, I've been nothing but respectful to you since you walked onto this stage. I asked you a simple question about family. If you're feeling attacked right now, maybe you should ask yourself why. Harry turned to face her fully, his voice rising. Maybe because I'm tired of being judged by people who don't understand. Maybe because I'm sick of having to explain myself to everyone. You sit there with your successful career, your nice studio, your adoring fans, and you think you can relate to me? You think you know what it's like? Jennifer crossed her arms, in her voice firm but controlled. I built this career from nothing, Harry. I worked for everything I have. I didn't inherit a title or a palace. And yes, I do have fans who support me because I treat people with respect. I don't come on their shows and tell them their lives don't matter. Harry's hands clenched into fists at his sides. This is unbelievable. I came here as a guest, and you're standing here insulting me. Jennifer didn't back down. I'm not insulting you, Harry. I'm calling you out for being disrespectful. There's a difference. Harry looked around wildly, as if searching for an ally in the audience. He found none. Every face looked back at him with a mixture of shock and disapproval. He turned back to Jennifer, jabbing his finger in the air. You know what? I don't have to stand here and take this. I don't have to listen to you or anyone else tell me how to feel. Jennifer nodded slowly. You're absolutely right. You don't have to stand here. But before you go, let me say this. I invited you onto my show because I thought we could have a real conversation. I thought you might want to connect with people, share something meaningful. But instead, you came here with a chip on your shoulder, ready to make everything about you. That's your choice, Harry. But don't act surprised when people don't respond the way you want them to. Harry's face turned an even deeper shade of red. His voice cracked as he shouted, You have no right to speak to me this way. Do you know who I am? The entire studio went silent. That question hung in the air like a grenade. Jennifer stared at him for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet but devastating. Yes, Harry, I know exactly who you are. You're a guest on my show who just forgot how to treat people with basic decency. Harry's mouth opened and closed. He looked like he wanted to say something, anything, but no words came out. The cameras captured every second of his humiliation. Finally, he ripped off his microphone, the wire tangling as he yanked it free. I'm done. I'm leaving. Jennifer didn't try to stop him. She simply stood there, watching as he stormed toward the exit. Her voice carried across the studio one last time. The door's right there, Harry. Safe travels. Harry whirled around one more time, his face contorted with rage. You'll regret this. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Is that a threat, Harry? Harry sputtered, realizing how his words sounded. You can't treat me like this. Jennifer's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. Harry, I've treated you with nothing but respect until you decided to disrespect me, my audience, and everyone watching. You want to leave? Leave. But don't threaten me on my own show. For a moment, Harry just stood there, breathing hard, looking between Jennifer and the exit. The audience was completely still. You could have heard a pin drop. Then, without another word, Harry turned and walked off the stage. His footsteps echoed in the silence. A door slammed somewhere backstage. Jennifer stood alone on the stage for a few seconds, then slowly turned to face the audience. She took a deep breath, composing herself. When she spoke, her voice was calm again, professional. Well, that was certainly unexpected. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. Jennifer managed a small smile. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. I've talked to a lot of different people. And one thing I've learned is that respect goes both ways. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what title you have. If you can't treat people with kindness and respect, then we're going to have a problem. The audience began to applaud. It started slow, just a few people, then grew into a roar. They were on their feet, clapping, cheering for Jennifer. She held up her hands, trying to quiet them down, but the applause continued. There were even a few whistles. Jennifer waited until the noise died down a bit, then continued. I want to be clear about something. I didn't bring Harry on this show to embarrass him or to have an argument. I genuinely wanted to have a conversation. But when someone comes into your house, sits in your chair, and then tells you that your experiences, your pain, your life doesn't measure up to theirs, that's when you have to stand up for yourself. More applause. Jennifer nodded, acknowledging it. And I want to say something to everyone watching at home. Your struggles matter. Your pain is real. Whether you're a prince or a single parent, whether you live in a palace or a studio apartment, your feelings are valid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The applause was thunderous now. Jennifer looked out at her audience, at all those faces looking back at her with admiration and support. She felt the weight of what had just happened, but she also felt something else. Pride. She had stood her ground. She had defended not just herself, but everyone who had ever been made to feel small by someone who thought they were better. Backstage, the producers were scrambling. Harry was nowhere to be found. He had apparently stormed out of the building entirely, leaving his security team rushing to catch up with him. One of the producers approached Jennifer during a commercial break, concern written all over their face. Are you okay? They asked. Jennifer smiled, a genuine smile this time. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. That was intense, the producer said. We've never had anything like that happen before. Jennifer nodded. I know, but sometimes you have to stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. When the show came back from commercial, Jennifer addressed the situation one more time. I know some of you might be wondering what happens next. Honestly, I don't know, but what I do know is this. I started this show to create a space where people could come together, share their stories, and feel heard. That's what we're going to keep doing. And we're going to do it with respect, with kindness, and with the understanding that every person who walks through that door, guest or audience member, deserves to be treated with dignity. The audience erupted again. Jennifer smiled, feeling the love and support washing over her. She had handled one of the most difficult moments of her career with grace and strength. She hadn't backed down, hadn't let herself be bullied, and hadn't compromised her values. As the show continued, Jennifer could see the impact of what had happened reflected in her audience's faces. They weren't just entertained. They were inspired. They had watched someone stand up to power. Someone refuse to be diminished. Someone fight for basic respect and human dignity. And they had seen that person win. Jennifer brought out her next guest, a teacher from Detroit who had started a program to help underprivileged kids learn music. The conversation was warm, heartfelt. It's exactly the kind of interaction Jennifer loved. The teacher talked about the challenges she faced, the kids she had helped, the dreams she had for the future. There was no arrogance, no entitlement, just pure passion and dedication. "You are incredible," Jennifer told her. "What you're doing for those kids, the impact you're having on their lives, that's what real royalty looks like." The teacher blushed, overwhelmed by the praise. "I'm just trying to make a difference, you know? These kids deserve every opportunity." Jennifer nodded. "And that's the thing. You don't need a title to make a difference. You don't need a crown to change lives. You just need to care about people and be willing to show up for them." The contrast between this guest and the previous one couldn't have been more stark. Here was someone doing actual good in the world, helping real people, making real sacrifices, and she did it all without seeking credit or demanding recognition. And she did it because it mattered. As the show wrapped up, Jennifer felt a sense of peace settle over her. Yes, the day had been chaotic. Yes, things had gone completely off script. But she had stayed true to herself, and that was what mattered most. She had shown her audience, and herself, that she wouldn't compromise her integrity for anyone, no matter how famous or powerful they might be. The cameras stopped rolling, and the audience began to file out. Several people stopped to shake Jennifer's hand, to thank her for standing up, to tell her how much the show meant to them. One woman, tears in her eyes, grabbed Jennifer's hand and held it tight. "Thank you," the woman said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for showing us that it's okay to stand up for ourselves. Thank you for reminding us that we matter." Jennifer felt her own eyes water. She pulled the woman into a hug. "We all matter," she whispered. "Every single one of us." Later, in her dressing room, Jennifer sat down and took a moment to process everything. Her phone was already blowing up with messages from friends, colleagues, and family members who had seen what happened. Most were supportive, praising her for how she handled the situation. A few were worried about potential backlash, but Jennifer wasn't worried. She knew she had done the right thing. She had treated Harry with respect until he made that impossible. She had given him every chance to course correct, to dial back the attitude, to remember that he was a guest in someone else's space. He had chosen not to take those chances. That was on him, not her. Jennifer thought about that moment when Harry had stood up, when he had pointed his finger at her and demanded to know if she knew who he was. She thought about her response, calm and measured, but absolutely devastating. "Yes, Harry, I know exactly who you are. You're a guest on my show who just forgot how to treat people with basic decency." Those words had cut through all the pretense, all the posturing, all the royal mystique. They had reduced the situation to its simplest, truest form. This wasn't about titles or status or who had suffered more. It was about respect. It was about treating people like human beings. And when Harry failed that basic test, Jennifer had called him out. She remembered the look on his face when she said it. The shock, the disbelief, the dawning realization that he had pushed too far, that he had miscalculated. He had expected her to back down, to apologize, to treat him with kid gloves because of who he was. Instead, she had stood her ground, and he hadn't known how to handle it. Jennifer smiled to herself. It had been a wild day, no doubt about it, but it had also been a powerful reminder of why she did this job. not to coddle celebrities or stroke egos, but to have real conversations, to challenge people when necessary, and to stand up for what was right. The confrontation had started with such a simple question. What does family mean to you? 37 seconds later, everything had changed. Harry's mask had slipped, his true colors had shown, and Jennifer had been forced to draw a line in the sand. It wasn't what she had wanted, but it was what the situation demanded. She thought about all the people watching at home, all the people who had felt dismissed or belittled by someone in power. She hoped they had seen that moment and felt something shift inside them. She hoped they realized that they didn't have to accept disrespect from anyone, no matter how important that person thought they were. Jennifer stood up, gathering her things. It was time to go home, to decompress, to let the day's events settle. Tomorrow, there would be more interviews to conduct, more shows to tape, more stories to tell. But tonight, she would rest, knowing that she had done her job with integrity and courage. As she walked out of the studio, past the cameras and the lights and the empty audience seats, Jennifer felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The show had been unpredictable, chaotic, and controversial, but it had also been real. And in a world of carefully scripted interviews and sanitized celebrity appearances, real was exactly what people needed. What had started as a routine celebrity interview had become something much bigger. It had become a statement about respect, about dignity, about the importance of treating every person as an equal, regardless of their background or status. Harry had come onto that stage expecting deference. What he got instead was honesty, and he couldn't handle it. Jennifer pushed open the door and stepped out into the cool evening air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She took a deep breath, letting the tension of the day flow out of her body. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new guests, new conversations. But tonight, she could rest easy, knowing that when it mattered most, she had stood up for herself and for everyone who had ever been made to feel small. The moment would be replayed countless times, analyzed and discussed and debated. People would have opinions, strong ones, about what happened and who was right and who was wrong. But Jennifer knew the truth. She had done what needed to be done. She had refused to be disrespected in her own house, on her own show, in front of her own audience. And when Harry had asked if she knew who he was, she had given him an answer he would never forget. An answer that reminded him, and everyone watching, that titles and status mean nothing if you don't have the basic decency to treat people with respect. An answer that showed him that in Jennifer Hudson's world, everyone was equal, and no one got a free pass to be rude or dismissive or cruel. Jennifer got into her car, and as her driver pulled away from the studio, she allowed herself one last thought about the day's events. 37 seconds. That's all it had taken for a simple question to spiral into the most dramatic moment in the show's history. 37 seconds for a prince to reveal that he had forgotten what it meant to be humble. 37 seconds for Jennifer Hudson to show the world what true strength looked like. She smiled, closed her eyes, and let the day go. Tomorrow was a new day, but today she had won. The drive home gave Jennifer time to reflect on every detail. She replayed the conversation in her mind, analyzing each exchange, each moment where things could have gone differently. She thought about Harry's initial response to her family question, how defensive he had been right from the start. It was almost like he had come onto the show expecting a fight, looking for a reason to be offended. She remembered his dismissive wave when she had tried to connect his struggles to those of everyday people. That gesture had said everything. In that moment, he had shown that he genuinely believed his pain was more important, more valid, more worthy of attention than anyone else's. And that was the fundamental problem. Not that he had struggles or that he felt hurt by his family situation, but that he couldn't see beyond his own experience to recognize the shared humanity in everyone else's struggles. Jennifer thought about the single mothers in her audience, the people working multiple jobs just to survive, the families dealing with illness or loss or financial hardship. She thought about how Harry had essentially told all of them that their problems didn't compare to his. And she felt the same flash of anger she had felt on stage. The same determination to stand up for those people who couldn't stand up to a prince themselves. When she had shared her own story of loss, when she had talked about her mother and brother and nephew, she hadn't been trying to one-up Harry or compete in some kind of suffering Olympics. She had been trying to show him that pain is universal, that everyone carries burdens, that his experience, while unique in its details, was not unique in its emotional weight. But he had taken it as an attack. He had taken her vulnerability and thrown it back in her face. The moment when Harry had stood up still felt surreal. She could still see the shock on the faces in the audience, could still feel the electric tension that had filled the studio. Nobody had expected a guest to actually stand up and start pacing during an interview. It was such an aggressive move, such a clear sign that he had lost control of his emotions. And yet, even in that moment, Jennifer had kept her cool. She had matched his energy without losing her professionalism. The question that had really set him off, the one that had pushed him over the edge, was when she had asked him why he felt attacked. That simple question had forced him to confront the fact that his feelings weren't based on anything Jennifer had actually said or done. She had been nothing but respectful. She had asked reasonable questions. She had tried to engage with him thoughtfully. His sense of being attacked was coming from inside himself, from his own insecurity and defensiveness. And when she had pointed that out, he hadn't been able to handle it. "Do you know who I am?" Those 5 words would echo for a long time. They revealed so much about Harry's mindset, about what he expected from the world. He expected his title to protect him from criticism, from pushback, from having to engage with people as equals. He expected deference simply because of who he was born as, not because of anything he had earned or accomplished. And when Jennifer had refused to give him that deference, when she had treated him like any other guest who was being disrespectful, he had completely fallen apart. Jennifer's response to that question would be replayed over and over. "Yes, Harry, I know exactly who you are. You're a guest on my show who just forgot how to treat people with basic decency. It was perfect. It was devastating. It was exactly what needed to be said." Because in that moment, Harry's title didn't matter. His royal status didn't matter. What mattered was his behavior, and his behavior had been unacceptable. The car pulled up to Jennifer's house, and she stepped out, thanking her driver. As she walked to her door, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life she had built. She had worked so hard to get where she was, had overcome so much, had fought for every opportunity, and she had done it without ever forgetting where she came from, without ever losing sight of the fact that she was no better than anyone else just because she was on television. Inside, she kicked off her shoes and sat down on her couch. The house was quiet, peaceful. She thought about calling someone, maybe her sister or a close friend, to talk through what had happened. But she decided to sit with it for a while first, to let herself process everything before she started rehashing it with others. Titius. Jennifer thought about the teacher she had interviewed after Harry left. That conversation had been such a beautiful contrast. The teacher had faced real challenges, had sacrificed her own time and money to help kids who had nothing, and she had done it all with humility and grace. She never once acted like she was owed anything, or like her work made her better than anyone else. She just did the work because it needed to be done. That was real nobility. That was what it looked like when someone truly cared about making a difference in the world. Not complaining about how hard your life is, not demanding special treatment, not throwing tantrums when people don't bow down to you. Just showing up, doing the work, and treating everyone with respect.